More than 300 million invasive catfish are quietly spreading a terrifying threat across the world. They eat almost anything, survive in polluted waters where many other fish cannot, and reproduce so rapidly that they can dominate an entire river system within just a few years. In North America, they have contributed to a biomass crisis that puts a $7 billion fishing industry at risk. Countries have launched large-scale harvesting campaigns and even poisoned entire canal sections stretching tens of kilometers. Yet the fish continue to spread. And then, instead of trying to eliminate this species from nature, China chose a completely different approach that surprised many people. So what did they do with this ancient fish? Let's explore with Mandarin Tech. Before becoming a controversial invasive species around the world, catfish had already existed on Earth long before humans appeared. Today, they have evolved into more than 3,000 species distributed across almost every continent. What makes them remarkable is not their age, but their ability to survive in conditions where most species cannot. Many catfish can live in low-oxygen environments, tolerate murky water and high levels of organic pollution, and eat almost anything, from insects and algae to organic matter and smaller fish. Each breeding season, a mature pair can produce tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of eggs. These traits make catfish one of the most adaptable freshwater species on the planet. However, not all catfish are spreading like this. In the ancient Mekong River, there once existed a giant catfish that could grow up to 3 meters long and weigh over 300 kilograms. Once considered one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. Today, their population has declined by more than 90% in just 50 years. Hydropower dams have blocked natural migration routes, changed the river's flow, and disrupted breeding cycles that had existed for thousands of years. While some catfish are disappearing from the oldest rivers in Asia, others are beginning a completely opposite story. In Florida, a quiet but highly persistent biological invasion is unfolding. The walking catfish can survive out of water for nearly 24 hours and crawl hundreds of meters across land after heavy rains, making natural barriers almost useless. Since appearing in the 1960s, it has spread widely across ponds, canals, and inland waterways. The economic impact is most visible in aquaculture. Walking catfish invade fish farms, consume juvenile fish, and compete for feed, causing estimated losses of $1 to $5 million per year for freshwater farms in the state. In some areas, farmers report sharp increases in stock loss after a single rainy season, when these fish move in from nearby waters. Efforts to control them have been largely ineffective. Chemical treatments have been tested in small canals, but they quickly revealed serious drawbacks, not only killing the invasive catfish, but also harming native species and degrading water quality. Meanwhile, manual removal and netting cannot keep up with their rapid reproduction and spread. And the crisis does not stop in North America. In India, a catfish species originating from Africa has become the center of a controversial ecological invasion for decades. Initially introduced in the 1990s for experimental farming due to its rapid growth and ability to adapt to high-density aquaculture, the species quickly escaped into the wild and spread through major river systems such as the Ganges and Yamuna. With strong predatory behavior both day and night, they feed on small fish, frogs, crustaceans, and even young water birds, causing a noticeable decline in native aquatic populations in many areas. Faced with this difficult-to-control spread, Indian authorities have banned the farming of this species in several states, while also carrying out inspections and confiscations at illegal. While many countries are still trying to remove catfish from natural ecosystems, one country has chosen to do the opposite, turning this species into part of the largest protein production system on the planet. Today, China produces about 60% of the world's total aquaculture output, with most of it coming from inland freshwater farming. In the basins of the Yangtze River and Pearl River, large-scale fish farming clusters have been developed into interconnected pond systems spanning hundreds of hectares, where each cycle can raise from 300,000 to over 1.2 million fish, depending on density and species. Within this network, species such as channel catfish, yellow catfish, and African catfish strains are produced at an estimated 300,000 to 450,000 tons per year, becoming one of the key freshwater protein sources in central and southern China. In particular, Hubei, often called the Land of a Thousand Lakes, currently has more than 4 million hectares of aquaculture water surface, forming one of the largest inland fish farming hubs in the world. Importantly, this development is not accidental. Catfish are chosen because they are well suited to inland freshwater conditions, can be farmed at high density, grow quickly, and provide a stable protein source for a country with more than 1.4 billion people. To maintain production at hundreds of thousands of tons per year, China cannot rely on natural reproduction. Instead, breeding has been moved to large industrial hatcheries. Broodstock are selected for growth and adaptability, then induced to spawn in tanks with controlled temperature and water quality. Each pair can produce 50,000 to over 200,000 eggs per cycle, which hatch within 24 to 36 hours. The larvae are raised in nursery systems for about 3 to 4 weeks before being transferred to grow-out ponds. This controlled breeding system allows farms to maintain a stable supply of fingerlings year-round, while significantly reducing production costs. However, seed supply is only half of the equation. Unlike livestock farming, which requires large amounts of feed and long raising periods, catfish have a very low feed conversion ratio, typically around 1.2 to 1.8 kilograms of feed to produce 1 kilogram of fish. Most of the feed does not come from natural sources, but from soybeans, grains, and agricultural byproducts. These ingredients are then processed into floating pellets, allowing farmers to better control feeding and minimize waste in the ponds. Going further, many regions in China use an integrated duck-fish farming model to reduce costs and improve efficiency. Duck houses are built directly above the ponds or raised slightly above the water. Each duck produces about 120 to 150 grams of waste per day, most of which falls into the pond and becomes a natural nutrient source for the fish. This creates an effective biological cycle. Farms can reduce 20 to 30% of industrial feed because duck waste acts as a secondary food source. It also promotes the growth of algae and plankton, which provide natural food that helps fish grow faster. At the same time, fish help clean the system by consuming organic matter, reducing sludge buildup, and lowering the risk of low oxygen and disease. In efficient setups, 1 hectare can support 1,000 to 2,000 ducks, along with tens of tons of fish per cycle. This can increase total output value by 1.5 to 2 times compared to single-species farming, while also reducing financial risk. After months of growth in high-density ponds, harvesting begins like a precisely timed operation. Water levels are gradually lowered to reduce movement space, while long nets are pulled inward in a curved shape. As the net tightens, the fish gather densely near the surface, forming a moving mass that looks like a living current from above. In key farming regions such as Hubei and Anhui, a standard commercial pond can produce 150 to 400 tons of fish in a single harvest, a level that traditional systems may take a year to achieve. When multiple connected ponds are harvested at the same time, total output can exceed 1,000 tons within a few hours. The fish are then quickly loaded into oxygenated tanks or refrigerated trucks and transported to nearby processing centers on the same day. At the market level, with prices ranging from about $1,600 to $2,500 per ton. Harvesting is no longer just a seasonal activity, but a high-value production step in the domestic protein supply chain. In large cooperatives along the Yangtze River, where ponds operate on rotating schedules, total output can reach up to 10,000 tons per season, ensuring a steady supply for processing plants over many months. Behind the production of thousands of tons of fish each season lies a less visible technical challenge: wastewater treatment. Uneaten feed and organic waste in ponds can quickly build up nitrogen, phosphorus, and sludge, degrading water quality and spreading into natural river systems if not controlled. Many large catfish farms use multi-stage pond treatment systems. Water from the main pond is not discharged directly, but first passes through settling ponds to capture organic sludge, then moves to biological ponds where aquatic plants in filter-feeding fish absorb excess nutrients. Some modern farms also use semi-closed recirculation systems, allowing them to reuse up to 60 to 70% of water in each cycle. These systems reduce pollution, control eutrophication, limit algae blooms, and lower disease risks. As a result, high-density farming can remain stable over multiple cycles without putting heavy pressure on surrounding rivers. As soon as catfish leave the ponds, their journey continues. Within hours, they enter a completely different world, one of non-stop conveyor belts, automated cutting lines, and large cold storage systems operating 24/7. Here, speed defines value. A medium processing plant can handle 200 to 500 tons of fish per day. Fish are sorted by size using sensors, then move through continuous lines for gutting, filleting, and washing with recirculated cold water. Everything happens by the minute, not in batches like traditional methods. In less than 12 hours, freshly harvested fish become frozen fillets ready for the market. Cold storage systems at -18 degrees Celsius to -40 degrees Celsius can hold thousands of tons, helping stabilize supply even when harvest volumes change. Almost nothing is wasted. Skin is processed into gelatin, bones into animal feed, and fat into food and oil products. Nearly the entire fish is used, turning each harvest into a fully integrated part of a modern industrial protein system. Once they leave the processing line, catfish are no longer just a typical freshwater species. They become a link in the challenge of feeding nearly 10 billion people in the coming decades. For most of modern history, humanity's protein supply has mainly come from livestock and poultry. But these systems depend on large land areas, significant water use, and long raising periods, factors that are becoming harder to sustain as the global population grows and urban areas continue to expand. In contrast, fast-growing freshwater species like catfish can be farmed directly in vast inland plains, close to population centers and consumption markets. Shorter farming cycles, higher stocking densities, and better feed conversion efficiency allow large volumes of production in a relatively short time, without the need to expand farming land in the traditional way. That is why in many modern industrial farming systems today, catfish are increasingly becoming a reliable protein source that can be produced consistently year-round. China's approach is not entirely new. Many countries affected by the spread of catfish have tried similar industrial farming models, hoping to turn an invasive species into a valuable food source. However, results vary greatly, mainly due to natural conditions and how farming systems are organized. In China, most large-scale farms are located in vast inland plains such as the Yangtze and Pearl River basins, where dense freshwater pond systems have existed for a long time. In these open and seasonal environments, even if some fish escape into the wild, They are less likely to cause sudden ecological impacts compared to narrower or more closed river systems. At the same time, modern farming clusters are designed with interconnected ponds and built-in water treatment stages before discharge. Wastewater from excess feed and organic matter is retained in settling and biological ponds, reducing the risk of eutrophication, a problem that has caused strong public opposition in other regions. Another key factor is strong domestic demand. With a population of over 1.4 billion people, most of the production can be consumed within the country, helping the system remain stable instead of becoming a long-term ecological burden as seen in parts of North America and India. From a species living in murky, low-oxygen rivers, catfish have become part of some of the world's largest food production systems. In some places, they are an ecological threat that is difficult to control, but in others, they have become a strategic protein source for millions of people. The story of catfish shows that what truly matters is not the species itself, but how humans choose to use and organize it within their systems. If you want to keep exploring the technologies and mega projects that are quietly reshaping our world, don't forget to like and follow Mandarin Tech so you don't miss the next video.